Good evening and welcome to Nurturing Our Roots, the journey from slavery to freedom. I don't know why I'm hearing this feedback. Let me just go ahead and stop that. All right, got it out the way. Welcome to Nurturing Our Roots, the journey from slavery to freedom live Zoom session with Antoinette and Karen. We're here every Tuesday at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. The talk show where ordinary people with extraordinary family stories can be heard. If you have a family story and you would like to share with us, we'll be happy to hear your story. Please email me at nurturingourroots@gmail.com. And I'm very sorry that my co-host is not here today, but we're going to have a very, very powerful hour of discussions of genealogy research. I'm very happy to welcome my special guest, Eric William and Jeremy Collins. Both are doing research in the same areas that my ancestors and I came from, which is Amite County, Mississippi, Tangipahoa, and St. Helena. Welcome to the both of you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I understand. I mean, Jeremy, how long have you been researching your family history, and what names are you researching?
I've actually been researching relatively for a short period of time, a little bit over a year. Is when I've started. You know, a few stories from there, but as far as
You're
deep
going in and
diving
out. You're going in and
last
out,
year,
Jeremy. We can't really
and
hear you very well.
I'm. Give me 1 second. Let's see what we can do
Mm-hmm.
about that.
Okay. Do you have it?
How about how about
Much
now?
better.
Can you hear me?
Uh-huh. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I was saying I've been researching for about a little bit over a year. I started in March of last year, and kind of been deep diving in it ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the names that I'm researching are tailors from the areas that you mentioned, Mississippi, Pike County, St. Helena Parish, so including Greensburg, Clinton, Tangipahoa Parish in Louisiana, which includes Kentwood and Meat City and stuff like that, and some of the surrounding areas.
Mm-hmm.
For Taylor, um, Washington, McClinton, Higginbottom, um, are a few of the names that I'm researching specifically in those areas.
Okay, Eric, what about you? What names are you researching and where are you researching? How long have you been researching?
Well, I started my research. My mother, she passed away back of July 2009. It was until like 2010 that I started my research. I have one daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And so because I have one daughter, with my mama being deceased and then and then her mom, then her mom's mom. So it was a lot of my relatives on my mom's side that have passed away at an early age, with my mama passing away at 48 and her mama passing at 47. So been doing it now going on 11 years now. Matter of fact, yeah, 11 years now. So um, most of my research have been done on my mom's side in Amite County. And then my dad passed 5 years ago. I got more involved on his side. And his people come from St. Helena, in which going to the state archives last week in Louisiana, putting up some death certificates. I basically found out from that death certificate that most of my daddy's relatives or ancestors, should I say, I'm thinking that they was born in Kentwood and they was not. They actually came from Washington Parish. So, and most of the surnames that I have, that's part of my lineage that I have traced back since these 12 years are Powell's. Well, Powell's now because when I found some discovery a couple of years ago, uh, a set of my ancestors, they was in the 1870s well, let me say that again. When I started and found information, I found a marriage license. I mean, a um, marriage information of Melissa Tucker being married to, oh shoot, can't think his name right now, having brain fog, but he was my third great grandfather. But I end up tracing her back and come to find out that they was Powell's before they was Tuckers in the 1870s. They was listed as Powell's, and then in the 1880s they was listed as Tuckers. So still trying to investigate as to why that happened. But Powell's was one of them. Banks, Pattersons, Robertsons, Weathersfields, Andrews, Johnson, Scotts.
Did you say Weatherspoon?
Weathersby.
Okay.
Then Andrews, Johnsons, Scott, Torrance, Davis, Cox, Hoods, Whiten, Thompsons, McGee's, Carsleys, Tuckers, Burtons, Roberts, Garners, Swanigans, Greens, Tates, Duns, Woodards, Kane, Mitchell, Walls, Stricklands, Cook, Bakes, Hughes, Spears, Williams, and Tobias.
Okay. I think what we all should consider doing is basically in that little triangle that we're talking about, we should look at possibly documenting all the surnames that we possibly can of people of African descent in that area.
Yeah.
Because we are all intertwined through different branches of our family, from Amite County, East Feliciana, West Feliciana, Tangipahoa, Washington Parish, and Pike County. Those names are still crossing over in
Yeah, they
each one of
crossing
those
over.
counties and
Yeah.
parishes. Yes. And Jeremy, where have you been to research your family history?
So I so far I've been down to Greensburg. Another cousin of mine and myself actually went down to the local library there in Greensburg. Also the Greensburg courthouse, and I've also went to the Tangipahoa library as well. And we visited over a dozen cemeteries.
And I was with you when we went to the courthouse. Now,
Yes.
we was looking at some records, some slavery inventories. Did you find anybody in there that was related to you, or did you look at any slavery records?
I found out in that particular courthouse was a lot of succession records for my third great grandparents, on one set of the third great grandparents, and also some marriage information and made copies of those. So there's a lot of succession records that I was able to obtain from there. That particular session when we were there, I think I visited the library twice, the courthouse twice.
I want to share this with both of you. This is the succession index book for St. Helena Parish, and it's dated 1804 to 1854. This is online at the familysearch.org. And so I really need to show you all how you can access this particular this book, because what this book will have in it, it would have the surname, the first name of the people. Let's say if we was looking for Harrells, and if they owned any of my ancestors, this is where I would start at to look at this book to see if I would find them in this book, and then I would go to that page and I would look at if they owned anyone let's say they own 19 enslaved people, then I will go and pull that file number. For instance, let me just give you a little, and this book is online. So let's say for number one, I'm pulling Henry Hertz. Henry Hertz will be in file H5. And this is 1825. And let me see if he owned anybody. His inventory totaled at $10,973. Yes, it's saying November 17, 1825, present for the inventory, Rosanna Hurst, late wife of deceased Henry H. Hurst, son of deceased Winford Hurst, also known as Carol, Nancy Hurst, minor heirs William, Rebecca, and John, idiot, and the minor heirs, okay, I just said that. Edith was in Virginia and North Carolina. Inventory 640 acres, slaves, oxen, total of the 10,000. That would be in this book. Now, it will not list them by name, and that's where the inventory come in right there. So, Eric, you had an opportunity. I know you have done a lot of research on the internet. You have specialized in making that African ancestry, that ancestry DNA connection. This was your first time going to Amite County to look at records, and you found what in that courthouse?
In that court, the slave inventory that listed several of my ancestors that came from Mason Spears on my Spears line through my mom's side. I came across that. Well, I came across that. What else did we come across? Came across was it a will? I think that was a will of Sarah Allen, another one of my ancestors. Yeah, and that right there, when I got that, it helped out a lot when I got back home, because it had a list of different relatives that he was basically dividing the inheritance with. And so going back on my tree, because my tree expanded out. I just made it over 60,000 last weekend. But those relatives, basically we're gonna find out that someone was his niece, and then someone was siblings to him. So that kind of helped me out to be able to pull some of these ancestors that was born like in 1846 that didn't have no identification of who the parents were, but the fact that they was on that will determined and gave me more understanding of who these people were, and which majority of them were sisters and brothers.
Before we started this show this afternoon, Jeremy was talking about something that he learned along the way, how important the census is. And we were just having that conversation. Let's do a recap of that conversation. Jeremy, you know just how important the United States federal census is to research. From your experience, how important it is to your research.
The census records have been a treasure. They've been absolutely essential in being able to compare things as far as DNA, and also some word of mouth communication that I've gotten from different relatives and stuff like that. And so being able to look up things on the actual census, it allows me to connect the dots, so to speak, and also it allowed me to do things like a lot of tracing and tracking. So it's definitely vital, because say, for instance, for example, if you run into a brick road and you're looking at certain census records, then a lot of times you may can comb through a page before and after and make that connection to what you have been missing. So you can find relatives, because a lot of times the relatives will live in a relatively tight spot, space, and so sometimes they may live next door or a few doors down. So census records have definitely been instrumental to the search and the process overall.
And we really, Eric, you was talking about sometimes that oral history that we was talking about when you think that somebody is a person's cousin, could be turn out to be something else, you know.
Mhm.
You want to talk about that somewhat? Well, and I'm pulling up the census now so we can really go over that census.
Well, yeah, I was going. Yeah, because I was trying to put up the census dealing with one particular descendant. I mean, well, ancestor. Because he was in the, and it's funny, you know, you look at these you go on Ancestry and you look at everybody's trees and stuff. And Jeremy made a valid point about the census. And and I tell people, when you look at those census, don't just look at the. I don't know. I mean, I know you guys be on Ancestry, so there's a way where you can look at the census to where you don't have to necessarily look at the census itself. It's embedded to where they actually you just scroll and just see the name that they list. But sometimes they have those names misspelled, and sometimes they have inadequate information. So it's good to open up that census and zoom in just to see exactly if that name is different than what it says. But one particular one, I'm trying to let me put it up.
Oh, you want to share something?
Let me put it up. Yeah, let me
Okay,
put
let me give you have the permission to share. Let me stop sharing and make sure that you can share.
let me as I'm sharing.
Okay.
You guys see me?
Yeah, we just okay, there it is. Mm-hmm.
You guys see my tree?
Yes.
Okay. So this is like an example here when it comes to the census. Um, and if I go to his census in the 1930s, so this is Bo Diddley. He's my third cousin through the base, through my lineage with the base.
I have a question to ask you, Eric.
Hmm.
We was talking about the land rules. Do you think that it's possible that somebody could have dropped the L off Landrew and made it Andrew or
You know,
added a L?
yeah, you see, me and you was talking about that too, last week too, because I was thinking about that too. But again, I don't know because you remember I show you the documents of that Paul Landrew when he married Dora Bates. He married Dora Bates as Paul Baptiste.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still trying to figure out how all of a sudden you marry her as a Baptiste, then you change your last name to Landrews. And when Dora passed away at 100, and I think Dora was 104, 105 years old, she passed away, and on her tombstone it says Dora Landrews, Dora Bates
What
Landrews.
year is this census right here?
So this is perfect example when we were talking about going through the census. So this is a census in Amite County, Beat 5, and
What year?
this
1930.
1930s. So if you look at the 1930s, you see that he says nephew, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look at everybody's tree, everybody got the tree, and they have him listed as a son, but clearly it says nephew.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you look at it different, you see what his last name is, right? It say
Landry.
Landry, but the relationship that his uncle, because he's in the house with his uncle, which was Eugene Bates. Eugene Bates is his uncle, and Eugene Bates had a brother, half brother named, when I say whole brother, because it's coming from, I mean, they brothers regardless, but his brother name was Charlie Landrews. So, and with my family information and the research that I have been doing and the DNA matches that I have with a son that he never knew, because his son was put up for adoption.
Now, can you stroll up a little bit? Because if anybody who's researching for the first time and you're looking at the census, we really want to point out to you what type of information you will find. You will find that person's name or the
Mhm.
legend of that person, the birth year, the gender, the race, the age of that person in 1930, the birthplace. Now, we know that the census, once again, you have to verify everything because a person can say Mississippi, but they was actually born somewhere else.
Mhm.
The relationship to the head of the household, That's to be questioned sometime, because it can say the nephew, but actually was the stepson or something. So
Mm-hmm.
the home in 1930, they was living in Beat 5, Amite, Mississippi. The street address, Robinson Road, dwelling number 38, family number 38, live on a farm, yes, attend school. No, the father's birthplace is Mississippi, the mother's birthplace. And I know a lot of times people ask this question, but they don't tell you where in Mississippi. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the only thing with the census. It does not break down the county or the parish. I haven't seen a census yet that really broke it down. Have you, Eric or Jeremy?
Mm-mm.
Nope.
No,
But
yeah.
the one thing I tell people is to when you get deep into this research and you really want to expand your tree out to go further back as possible, or just to, because like what I'm doing, I'm expanding my tree to where at some point this is going to be able to help so many young kids that's in that area that I grew up in that has no idea who their great grandfathers is, great grandmothers is. And to be honest, sometimes they won't know who they grandmother is, because a lot of them died at a young age.
Could you stop
Had I
sharing for
not
a
talked,
minute?
hmm?
Could you stop sharing for a minute? Because I really want to, we really need to talk about this. Number one, if your ancestors was enslaved, there is no way that you can find your ancestors without researching the persons who owned your family. That's just point blank. So we're basically doing two types of genealogy. One, finding your ancestors, and that brick wall that most people do hit is prior to 1870.
Correct.
It gets cloudy, it gets fuzzy, and you got your fingers crossed that you will find something, because like you said, Eric, those surnames change so often, and I know you've seen that. What about you, Jeremy? Can you stop
Um,
sharing for 1 minute?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out, and I'm kind of lost right now.
You can go at the top of it, and then it would just say stop
there we
sharing.
go.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Have you seen that, Jeremy, where your family's names, surnames changed quite a bit, or did they hold their surname?
They pretty much, that I can recall off the top of my head right now, they pretty much have been holding. But you do see those, of course, the misspellings or change of spelling. So, for example, the McClendons and the McClintons are actually the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Knighton and the Knight with a EN, and then also Knighton with an ON, are still the same people in the same family. And interesting enough, when I start to make connections with some of my living relatives, just using those particular surnames as an example, sometimes they haven't even heard of the different spelling. And a lot of times, especially in that area, if I'm connecting with them on Facebook, a lot of times they're friends with people who are actually their cousins, and I have to let them know that it's actually your cousin. And so those surname, not only the changes in the surnames themselves, but also the commonality of either a few different spellings, and sometimes they may, I don't necessarily have a cook, but for example, cook, sometimes it'll have an E on the end of it, and sometimes it'll have a just stop at a K, because sometimes they drop it. And even with 19, I've ran into someone who said that they believe their grandfather dropped the TON and just left it night.
Mm-hmm.
So these are things that you have to kind of be aware of as well as you're combing through records and as you're trying to connect dots.
I have a question for Eric, because this is very important. Eric, how often do you hear from people who live in the same area and they'll tell you, no, that's a different set? Or no, have you all heard that before? Now remember, you have people living in a very small area and they share the same surname, but if you talk with them, they'll say, oh no, that's a different set. How would they know if they haven't done their research, Eric? We can't hear you. Unmute yourself.
I'm sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
When I started connecting with some relatives on my mom's side, the Spears. I got that comment saying that, oh, we are a different set of Spears, because they was in, I think it was in Jerusalem. They were living in the area in Amite County called Jerusalem. And then you had some other Spears living in Wilkerson. You had some living up towards Franklin, Mississippi, and then going to East Feliciana Parish. But taking a DNA test confirms that not every surname is a different set, because for them to tell me that that's a different set, we all trace back to, for me, his name is Winter Spears. He's born in 1811. I have about 20 something DNA matches that confirms that we all share that same ancestor, and these people was in different areas of Mississippi and Louisiana. And then you had some of them that, you had some of them, that, at a certain point of time, our ancestors, they left to go get better jobs, like in Chicago, Wisconsin, Arkansas, and things like that. So those spirits are the same spirits. I'm actually in a family group on Facebook with the spirits. So I'm be trying to get more people to take the DNA test when they ask certain questions, or I don't think that's true. My thing to them is always, well, if you don't think it's true, take the test. Because at the end of the day, your cousin Dana, she ain't gonna lie.
Right. And I do want to point out that we must keep in mind that they had very large families back in those days. It's nothing to find where somebody had 25 children. And so if that's 25 different branches coming from the same person, if all of them had children and they lived to be adults. So let's give an example. What if that person had 25 children, and out of 25 children, 22 of them was married with children? That's 22 branches.
Yep.
Comes from that one person in that one area.
Yep, exactly.
And
that's a whole tribe.
That's right. And if the man, let's say if the man married twice, and his first wife had 15 children, and the second wife had 18 children, it's the same branch.
It's the same branch.
But what I do find is that most of the time people gather under their own little branch. Let's say, for instance, my grandmother had 13 children. Each branch really gathers to themselves, and they don't share openly the history. It's the tree. It's that one tree, So we have to find a way as historians and genealogists to tell everybody, stop looking at the branch and look at the entire tree.
I agree. Definitely agree.
Had I not branched my tree out the way I branched it out, I wouldn't be, my through line, they have this through line on Ancestry that helps out with your DNA. If I didn't expand my tree out to where my cousin married this person, married that person, you wouldn't be able to find out that maybe that cousin that married your cousin is the cousin to you through your dad's side.
Right.
So
right. Okay. I'm gonna pull up a through line right now so people can really see what you're talking
I was about to trying to go through mines and pull mines.
Why don't you pull up yours, because yours may have more information than mine, so people can really understand how important it is when you're exploring your DNA, when you're making those connections. And while we're on this topic, let's talk about the importance, until you pull up your document, the importance of documenting the research. Now, something I would like to say to both you, Eric, and Jeremy, finding your research is one thing, but I need to know, what direction are you going to take it to document what you're finding? Okay, you have it up. So who's this through line is for whom?
So let me move this out the way.
That's your beautiful mother.
Yeah, that's my mom. That's my dad. So this is mine. So I'm gonna show you mine, and probably I got another record I was telling you about last week. So if you look at this, this is my through line. So eventually I already know it should only be two people, which is my brother and my daughter, because that, but if when you keep going, I want to take you to where, so this is one, so okay, for example, go down here.
Did you see the cooks on there, Jeremy?
I'm trying to catch that right now.
The
I see,
Montgomerys,
I
the
see the
Cooks,
Montgomery,
the Walls, the Stricklands,
the Gardens, all those.
Mhm.
We can talk about that in a moment as well if you like. But yeah, I'm looking at that.
I'm trying to go to the one. Wait, they were my third grandfather. I'm sorry, I'm a minute.
So there's no way that we're all not connected one way.
So this is one perfect example. So when I started my research, like I told you, I did not have no information on my dad's side other than my grandpa was Nathan Walls Jr., which that lets me know his daddy was Nathan Walls Sr. Other than that point, I didn't know nothing else. That's nothing else, knowing that I knew, and all this time I thought that Uncle Kane was my uncle, but Uncle Kane was my dad's first cousin, one time removed, and he's my first cousin, two times removed.
Now hold it right there. I see Martin Wall. Martin Wall is your third great grandfather.
So right now, based on my analysis right now, until I get more DNA to confirm this, I assume this, and it goes back to what Germany was saying. Family lived around each other. So right now, I'm taking that as I'm taking the Martin Walls as being my third great grandfather until
Martin Walls is my Emily's.
Yeah, you talked about that because she was in the house, and so you click here, but
there it is.
Yeah, but see, and that's the thing, like me and you were saying, there's other relatives that trace back to you that I gotta be related to them through the Richardsons.
Okay, now here it is. Let's go back up to me again. All right, here I am. Antoinette Harrell, that's my father.
Even
there's his mother. Let's go up to Mary McKay. Charlie McKay. Let's go on up to Charlie McKay.
Okay.
Past him, and there's Emily Walls. So my Emily Walls and your Samuel Walls is half.
They brothers and sisters.
Brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So you come through Samuel Wall?
Yeah, I come through Samuel Wall. So
and
you
go back
Samuel
to Martin Walls.
Yeah, you click on Samuel Wall, so then you have, you got, that's my cousin here. My cousin, we all share the same great grandfather. Then you got Elsie Walls, who married, she ended up marrying, what's his name? Anderson. Marsh. Yeah, she married Marsh Anderson. But no, they had a son. I'm sorry. Yeah, so see, so these are. But if
was Marsh in St. Helena?
Yes, they from St. Helena.
Okay.
But if I go back, I want to show you the one. I want to show you this because this is where I didn't know. So, when it gets to these, third, some of them were second, but the third. So look at this. This Absalom Burton.
That's my line.
It took me 6 months to come up with an analysis with the DNA matches using ancestry.com and then get match to go to understand the segments on each chromosome. And so when I did the get match, I looked at several descendants that was lining up on one segment, and one of those I went back and they had a tree on their on Ancestry, and the one thing I saw was Epsilon. So what I did was rearrange my tree, and so when you rearrange your tree, it takes 24 hours for Throughline to update. And so I think like 2 days later, because I forgot, but 2 days later I went back through Throughline and I clicked. Now, as you see, that's 28 DNA matches. At this point, I know that this is right. That's 28 DNA matches. And so when I click on that, and again, and this is another connection that me and you have again, because you trace back to Burton's too. Mm-hmm. So you click on this here it is. You got all these Burton, Lewis Burton kids, and here it is again. Mm-hmm. There go you. You keep going forward. Then you see all these at the top. You got 4 here that falls under me, 2.
Okay.
But
So
you got
we're
all.
double related again.
Yeah. And then you see that these are all his children. So you go through all that. So I did not know that this was my 3rd great grandfather till I took that DNA test and did the analysis. Now I can go further down to I think Robert would be my either 4th or 5th great grandfather. If I go to Robert Patterson, give me a second. And this is my 5th. And then tell me if I pass. Okay.
There he is.
Didn't know nothing about this because I'm telling you, when I was growing up, I always wanted to date a Patterson girl in Mississippi. Guess God must have knew not to date them because they were my cousin. But you see, this is 16, and you have to be. And then the thing about this is too, is that Ancestry does something in the background where they go by whatever other trees said. The majority of the trees say that's what they put, but really, they both should say 35 because they both was married. But if you look at this, this is Amos Short, and that's 35. But every last one of these patterns, every last one of these patterns, all these patterns up in Amite County, traces back to Robert Patterson.
Okay. Now, Jeremy, did you recognize any surnames on this tree?
That's for a lot of them. The Gordons, the Burtons, the Boykins, sorry, um, Walls, and different names of that nature, either in my tree or in my DNA. Strickland, I just saw. There's Greens, and so a lot of the Montgomerys, of course. A lot of the surnames that you mentioned, and in that same spot, Kane, I have Kane in my DNA matches as well. But as you were mentioning earlier, in that small spot, and when people say different branches, but a lot of those different branches link. As you and I have, when I was down over at your house, and you were showing me, I think you showed me 2 ways that you and I link. And just looking at some of these particular names, of course, I'm going to start to poke at it a little bit more and see if I can connect them with some of the other people who are obviously their relatives. Which brings me to an important point that we can throw in here right quick. When you find someone else who's working in that same area, I think it's very important to have a conversation with them, because now some of the holes that we're trying to plug in, or some of the mysteries that we're trying to solve, we can be vital to one another. Because now, say I'm using, because I'm looking right at my screen here, and it says Boykin, and there's Boykin that he just had on his screen, where in some cases I've seen where there's a child or a parent or something missing, and Eric may have that, for example, right?
Right.
Sometimes, when you're doing trees, and I know we're talking about ancestry a lot, but then there's also, family search. And then you have, like, right now, I'm viewing my family search versus, as opposed to my ancestry. But they may have, say, 6 children, but the person might have had 9 children, right? And so some of your tree may be missing some, and somebody that you're talking to who are researching in that same area may have those answers that you're looking for. So I think that's also something to point out and be aware of, how, when you can meet people in that area and just even have a conversation with them can bring forth a lot of the information that you've been looking for.
And that's why I introduced you and Eric together, because I do know there is 3 other people that's researching in this area, and I
Right.
think everybody basically share an interest in let's say a certain area.
Right.
That's very helpful, because when we start to look at this area, and mind you, it's good to know that there's other people, because I've been researching this area for a long time, and to
Yes.
run across other people. There's a lady named Stephanie Johnson. I think that's what Stephanie Martin. I'm sorry, Stephanie Martin. Then there's A.D. Hampton. She specializes in the Wicker research. So I
Right.
know a lot of you all run across that last name Wicker at one time or another. So it would be really good if we can compile. It may take us a year to do it, But if we can compile a surname database for
Yeah.
each one of those areas, St. Helena, Amite County, Mississippi, Tangipahoa Parish, because if Eric has over 60,000 people on his tree, he have already covered a lot of those surnames.
A lot.
A
A
And
lot.
lot
keep
of
and
those.
yeah, and keep in mind too, you got people out there that have a lot of, people on their tree, but they're on my tree, everything, no matter what, somebody's connected to somebody. It's just not just dingling out there.
Yeah.
Okay, could you stop sharing for a moment? I want to share something with you. Now let's go back. Let's go to 1870, before 1870. Now, most people in this area, they had very small numbers of enslaved people. It wasn't like
Hmm.
the river parishes where you had someone that had, 300 or 400 enslaved people. I have never found those type of numbers. You
Right.
know, most of the numbers are very, in the teens. You may have somebody with 30. But keep in mind that if a family had land in Amite County, Mississippi, and had land over in St. Helena, they kept taking their people across the state line.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so if your person married somebody in Amite County and brought them over to St. Helena, so it's very important that we let people know, do not rule out an area just
That's
because
correct.
I've always known St. Helena. No, that's not my family. They didn't come from Amite County, Mississippi. Well, in those small, and you got to remember, the reason that you're looking at probates and succession records is because somebody was being sold off.
Yeah.
And so if your family was sold off at the end of the estate, when they were selling the estate and they were sold off to somebody across the line, they took a whole different name. So that's why it's very important for us to look at building that surname database, as well as helping people to understand, do not rule out that your family didn't leave St. Helena, because both of you have seen it. Eric, you just recently saw it last week where they was selling people. That's what the inventory is about. When they appraised them, where did they go? And a lot of times they went to another plantation, you know, across the state line, maybe even further. But that's very important. Look, this, both of you all said it yourself. I heard Eric say it last week. It's very tedious research.
Yeah, but one thing I can say, it does get very emotional if you once you start getting connected to this, to your ancestors, and you actually get deep into this research. Because I don't care what you say, Antoinette, it's like every time I get on my tree and I go in that area of Lewis Allen, I just get mad. Because every time I think about it, I think about them. I'm thinking about them coming in their home, taking their family, 5 people now. These is 5 people, and selling them for $20.
Mm.
Yeah, you can't.
$20.
There's no way you cannot get emotional when you're doing research and you're looking at people who were sold or lynched or raped or anything. But I want to share something with both of you all that's very important.
And to go to the
All
state
of your
park.
research can be in vain if you do not share it. You follow me?
I
So you
definitely
have
do.
to
Yeah.
find a way to process it and then to share it. I created this blog years ago and I share photographs, I share a lot of information. This is what I just recently did this morning. I found all of these photographs from the Lanier for Jonesy collection, and I wanted to share it because maybe people will identify. But I want to point out something to you. Over 373,000 people have read this blog. So we're
No.
reaching people and people have information to share. But you must remember that you're living in a community that we're still searching for records. Jeremy, I saw where you was asking people in that group, in the St. Helena group, to
All right.
share information, but you see just how little information it is on people of African descent.
Yes.
So now you're researching. Now, what are you going to do to make it accessible for other people who will come behind you to do the research? So please think about that. So this is all new. I just did this morning because I didn't I didn't want that to go to waste. Eric, you was there at the Louisiana State Archives when they brought out this box with the Britton's family. And so this is one of the photographs that I found in that box. Now keep in mind, whenever we're doing our research, the one thing that we always want to find is photographs, right? Because we
Oh,
think they don't
most
exist,
definitely.
but they exist.
Yes.
So this was
Yeah.
just photographs that was in that box. And Eric is at the Louisiana State Archives. He's pulling debt records. I think, Eric, what you pull about 26 of them. How many did you pull? Unmute.
I'm sorry. 22.
22.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so this is, he's in the Amite Genealogy Library. Now, Eric, you're a newcomer to looking at the shelves. Tell the listening audience how important it is to go to the genealogy department when you're researching your family history at the libraries.
Yes, it's from going from getting understanding from you last week and everything. I tell anybody go to the library first because you can go to the library and pull different books and write those information down. It'll be easier when you get to the courthouse. Just get them the page number and blah blah blah. Whatever it is on that's in that book. I just find it I find it very helpful to go to the library first.
Okay, and also we want to make note that sometimes records are missing, huh?
Yeah, yeah, because we sure got there and there was a record missing.
There was a record.
Solomon Allen. I mean, Solomon Allen was his name. They had all the information in there. Then we asked for the documentation. It's nowhere to be found.
And they didn't even know what the numbers meant. Like, I don't even know what
Mm-hmm.
this is to identify that file. Now, I just recently created this page to document the history in Amite County and Pike County, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
Because once I find the research and once I find something, I want to put it out there so that not only to collect information, but to share information. Like if I was researching the Wall family, I know that Charles Walls owned a plantation called Oak Grove Plantation in Gillsburg, Mississippi. So that tells me once again, Eric, that in order we would hope that his family records was donated to the Mississippi State Archives or some university is the way
Mm-hmm.
that you learn about those families, the family history. Not all the time, it's not the case all the time, but we hope that it is. So,
And
uh,
yeah, just like what you looking at, like I'm seeing what you're looking at right now. You got this Charles, what's it, Charles Walls and
mhm,
Minerva Walls being the daughter.
yes.
That's something that I'm doing right now because I have a relative's DNA. And she passed away last year. She was a very good friend, a good cousin. She helped out a whole lot, but I'm not finding that to be true anymore because they are not connected with any of those walls that are connected to that Charles Walls kids.
Okay, and they said that Minerva's
Yeah,
mother
they said
was Irene Foster.
Minerva's mother was Irene
Foster.
Foster, and
Mm-hmm.
she had a child with Charles. I don't find that to be true
Mm-hmm.
because of the DNA, nobody's matching.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I want you to know I met one of your relatives through the Taplin side. Her name is
Mhm.
Sherry. I forgot Sherry's last name, but she inbox me and say, Antoinette, this is my family members. So when you put it out there,
Mhm.
you can start your own blog. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate or very long. It could be 2 sentences, 3 sentences, whatever it
Mhm.
is. But that's a great way that you find information.
And
So,
and yeah, and that's Germany's ancestor too, because that Luther, Calvin, and them, they trace back to tapes.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah,
So this was information you're based. Now, this is just information that we got out the courthouse last week, because I want people to understand that when you find these records, you got to have somewhere to share them. I want to share something else with you, if you would allow me to. And the reason I want to share this with
sure.
you, go ahead. Somebody was saying
No, I
something?
just said sure. I said sure.
Yeah. I want to share this with you because for a long time I have been documenting where I want my research to go. And okay, in the shadows of history, let me share that with you. Because it would be a waste of time if I didn't do something with it. This just came out this morning by the Amistad Research Center, and this is documenting once again some of the work that I have done in regards to genealogy and activism in New Orleans and surrounding areas. So, if somebody was looking for the index of these records, it would definitely tell a lot about my peonage work there, and the collection that I'm donating to the Amistad. But there's another very extensive collection that I want to show you. Um, Give me 1 minute. So that's why I need both of you all to be thinking about it. What are you going to do with your research? All right, this is very important for you to see here. All right. And you may want to use this for your own research, not just my collection, but you want to just, when you're up at night, you want to spend some time browsing. If you look at this here, box number 1, folder, I have 151 items from Fluka, Louisiana. Now, if you ask me right now, what is in this? Only thing I can tell you, I collected, and I try not to let it sit in my house too long. It's a lot of photographs. I can tell you that the Richardson files, 23, the Williams family history, 3, but it goes the Wall family files, 29, the Gordon, 20 items, Temple, 40. So this is what's in this collection. And I donate to these collections, I would say every year, once a year. Thomas Tucker, 13 items. What did you say to the Tucker family? This was the first African American collection at Southeastern. Why did I choose Southeastern for these records? Because it is the Florida Parishes. And
Right.
so most people would not travel to New Orleans to look at these documents. And I tried to make it easy for everybody. There is obituaries. Richardson's Funeral Home. Let me make this announcement to you all. Richardson's Funeral Home donated over 300 funeral programs to Southeastern in their own name. So
Wow.
there's a box 2, box 3, box 4, and it goes on and on and on. And until, and I just added some new material, but I just want you to know, just go through Southeastern and just, when you're not doing anything, browse the finding aid and see if you can find anything. Like the St. Helena School Records and Information, a mass school reunion, and a lot of those people that was on there was identified on those photographs.
Um,
So there's 2 collections that I have. The Landry family, look at that, Landry Harrell, the slavery inventory mentioned premise. So this, they may have added it, I don't know, let me see. The Gilmore, Robert Zanders, 40 documents, but I just want to let you know. Now just think, you seeing all this material, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see everything here. That's a lot of material.
So
So now just think if something happened to me. I'm sick, I pass away, my children don't understand it. They don't know what this is. My husband don't understand it. What do you think will happen to it?
it's going to be lost. Um, can I say I want to add on a couple of things real quick because I know we're getting tight on time. Just looking at those records, and this is a
Mm-hmm.
testament to what you're where you're going with it. I saw the Harrells obviously. That we are related through. I saw the Temples. I'm looking at Stanley Temple right now, who's married to Cora Wheeler. But the importance of this, and especially, and then I speak this as a testament to you. When I was at the Tangipahoa Library, let me back up. When I was at the Greensburg Library, the librarian, they were volunteering. They came from the Clinton Library, and I was telling them what I was working on, and they say, "Well, you need to look up Antoinette Harrell." They say she's done a lot of research on this whole area. And I immediately jumped on Facebook. I was like, "This is her right here," and I sent you that friend request. Well, it took you a few days before you saw the request, but I wound up the next day going to Tangipahoa Library because she recommended that. And when I was there, the librarians, the people in the genealogy department, they were very helpful. They bought a lot of books and materials and things like that. Well, come to find out, as I was there and I was going through some of the things, one of the books that they bought out was a book that you had donated.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm browsing through the book, I was just so blown away by having all these pictures, and I was looking at some names, and I ran across Cora Wheeler, which is my first cousin twice removed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as I was looking at it, I said, "Well, that name looks familiar." And I jumped on a family search app and I saw Cora Wheeler. Well, the guy was like, he's like, "I think we have one of her relatives who actually work here, which was Ramon." And then to come to find out you and Ramon are related as well. So I bring it up because what you say is very important, just because you had that documentation and you had it and you didn't hoard it and you just didn't have it stashed away. And I heard you say that you like to kind of get rid of it as fast as possible, get it out your house. Well, had that book not had been there, I probably wouldn't have made some of these connections. So it is definitely very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to kind of give a quick story as a testament to where you were just going with that. And real quickly, also to piggyback on what you were saying about people, you were using Amite and you were using, say, St. Helena. And not even, it doesn't even necessarily have to be that close. Eric was just, and when you introduced us a couple of nights ago and we were talking, my dad's side, which I'm Collins, right? Well, he's tied to, Landry's, Boudreaux's, Bros, Baptiste, Besserts, and whole bunch of others, right? I never even knew that until recently. But when I was talking to Eric, he found I believe it was my great great grandfather on my dad's side that nobody had got to yet. And guess where he was from?
Where?
Pike, Mississippi.
Oh,
Look, I told him when we talked, when we got the phone with you, he called me back. We talking. I said, "Your last name Collins, huh?" He like, "Yeah." I said, "I bet you from Mississippi." He's like, "No, I don't think so." We kept talking. I was
see?
researching. I said, "No." I told him what the census was and everything. I said, "No, they from Pike County, Mississippi."
That kind of
See?
Mississippi.
Yeah.
And they had moved some of his descendants, his sons, exactly, to be exact. They moved all the way to Vermilion Parish, Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And so I bring it up because that's quite a distance, right? And so even sometimes we kind of confined to an area. I found some 19th family that's way in Niagara Falls, New York,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to be mindful, especially in those Florida parishes and Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, Virginia, the Carolinas. A lot of times people migrated up north, and so
That's
it
right.
made sense
Great point.
when I found a 19 way in the Niagara area because a lot of people went through Niagara
Mm-hmm.
and even crossed over into Canada, right? And I'm saying that just for those who are listening to kind of go along with what you said to you have to expand and also be mindful of the time period that you're looking at. And then also, like you said, the multiple children. My third great grandfather, one of them on my mom's side, he had 18 kids. And so now, and they were tailors, and I'm connecting a lot of those family members now, and then, you had some tailors marry some Hookfins from Kentwood, Louisiana, and then everybody in the area know Hookfin. That's right. But these are names that I never had heard of before I started doing my research. So a lot of times I'm on Ancestry and I message somebody that was like, well, I don't recognize any of those surnames, right? But there are good reasons for that.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right, right. Well, I just want to say this has been a very educational hour. And I would certainly like to look at in the future, planning something with the three of us where we can make a trip to the courthouse
Oh, most
together,
definitely.
as well as some come back on and just do something that can help educate people who want to know more about their family history and just light the fire under other people to get started with their research, because people have information in their homes, there's photographs, there's documents. So we need to really encourage people to share, and we can talk about that in another segment.
Yeah.
But I just want to thank both of you all for being a guest on Nurturing Our Roots. And as always, please share this segment with
And,
people. Let
Antoinette,
me just remind people to like the page. That's very important. Let me share something with you. Here it is. So we need you to make Nurturing Our Roots a part of your weekly educational power hour.
Thank you for joining us on Nurturing Our Roots. Please give us a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so that you won't miss any of our videos.
And let
Thank
me
you
just
for joining us on Nurturing Our Roots. Please
see,
give us
it
a
just got a
big
mind
thumbs
zone.
up
Or
and
I'm just doing what I
subscribe to
want to
our
do, huh?
channel.
I just want to say to you all, this will be up on YouTube, and you can share with other people in the family. And it's certainly in St. Helena, Tangipahoa, Amite County. They need our help. We got to really nobody's going to tell our story. Nobody's going to research our history. That is completely up to us to do. And I just want to thank both of you all for all that you are doing to bring awareness to this area, to your ancestors, and not only your ancestors, but to everyone in the community. So thank you all for being a guest on this segment of Nurturing Our Roots.
thank you for inviting me.
You're quite welcome.